Keith, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Jerry.
I think it's probably fair to say we're lucky to have you, given where you've just come from.
Maybe, yeah. No, look, I'm looking forward to sharing a bit of the journey, and probably more so as well where I'm heading with the new venture, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah, nice. Well, yeah. Do you want to sort of kick us off with, I guess, how you got into the industry, where it all started for you, and I guess also where you were at in life, at the time.
That's quite a good question. So I started out, my mum worked for accounts for a freight forwarder back in the day. Probably can tell by the accent, I'm not born and bred in Manchester. So grew up just outside Heathrow Airport.
Oh, okay.
Bit of a natural segue. There's a lot of freight companies there where I lived.
The epicenter.
I had ambitions to be a professional golfer, then realised I was nowhere near good enough. And I remember looking out the window thinking, I won't be doing freight forwarding for the rest of my life. And here we are now, sort of associated. But I've really enjoyed the journey. Initially, I was very operations-led, doing imports. I still remember one of my first ever customs entry. It was for, we did a lot of work with auction houses, so Christie's and Sotheby's, and it's interesting. We did everything from paintings to Jimi Hendrix's hats, John Lennon's handwritten lyrics on the back of a napkin. But one of my first ever customs entries I did, which I was really nervous about, was Van Gogh's Sunflowers. So I had to put the value in there, and I checked it about 15 times to ensure I declared it correctly. But it was, very different, rather than just moving boxes. But
would there have been a massive consequence on you if you got that wrong?
Probably more so my boss for letting me do the entry, because I was like 21, I think it was.
You'd be throwing him under the bus almost.
He did check it, obviously, but it was a good career to start off with, because we were dealing with things that interested me, from cars to music to fine art, high value.
Yeah.
But it gave me a really good operations background. I never felt that was going to be my career in operations, but I'd be meeting somebody at 5 a.m. off an aircraft with some fine art that needed clearing from Australia. And then on a Friday night, I might be going to leave the office, go and meet them to customs clear for things like watches, really high value watches, to again, fine art. So it was really varied, and that's really what made me stay in the industry. I loved it.
How old were you when you got into the import role?
So probably looking at about 20, something like that, 21.
Oh, right.
I did college. I didn't feel university was right for me.
Yeah.
So I went into that, did operations for about 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
But really had a hunger to grow the business.
And who was the company?
It was a company originally called James Borley,
yeah,
long gone, and then a company called Vulcan International, which was a fine art division of Burlington Freight Forwarding, Burlington Freight, which is a name from the past.
Got you.
And unfortunately, I think they went many years ago, but it was a really good grounding, and it was quite interesting. Every day was varied, and I quite liked that.
Brilliant. Yeah. No, sounds it. And yeah, it's amazing how many people start as an import or export coordinator that you've seen then just go bang, bang, bang and rise to the top. So I guess, one, it served you well. So
definitely, yes.
I know the pro golfing career may have been the desire.
I was a bit delusional, wasn't I, when I was at that age.
But it seems to have served you well. And I guess, how old were you and where were you at when you first stepped into leadership within the industry?
It's a good question. So I think it was 25. So I was working for an American company. About 23, 24, I'd split up with a girlfriend, and I'd got the bug for travelling, and I was going to maybe give up work and travel, go to Camp America or something to do that. And then an opportunity came up for an American company to work in them for sales, and there was a guaranteed 2 trips a year to the US. I was very lucky, actually. I'm pretty sure it was with business class seats as well. Right, so I thought, I can go and experience US on my own pound or dollar, as they say there, or I could do it. So it gave me international travel quite early.
That's so cool.
So that was in a sales role. And then I was going to move somewhere else, and I got offered a job in Manchester to run the sales for their northern region. So before I was just, sales rep, BDM type role. And then I was offered at 25 to move to Manchester. And at the time it was to run sales for this it was an American company called Camden with a K. I think they got bought by DSV in the end, as did many. But it gave me an opportunity to go into a more senior sales role. And then eventually it was to run the branch for them. So that was my first real
step into it.
At 25, it was quite a lot of responsibility to be running a branch.
That's quite young, isn't it? Like,
it was. It was quite young. It wasn't a huge office. I think by the time I left, it was about 10 people, 8 to 10 people in the office. But it gave me really good grounding in terms of being responsible for a P&L, what goes into a P&L, getting that intuition of what looks right and what looks wrong. That served me well in my career, when you can look at a bunch of numbers and see something that looks a little bit off perhaps. So that served me really well, gave me that ability to travel the US and grow our business in the US and get more strategic, I guess.
And how many people were in the team at the time?
I think when I left it was about 8 or 10 of us that were at that at Camden.
Got you. And did you find, being 25, going into like managing people, because I imagine some people were probably older than you at the time and stuff like that. Like, how did you feel qualified, I guess? Or like, how did you feel when it was like, we need you to manage people?
Sometimes you're never qualified for the roles that you take, and you grow into them if you've got your confidence that you can grow into them. It was difficult because a few of the members were quite a lot older than me by quite a way. So, and it was difficult because when I first moved into that role, the person who I'd replaced was still working for the company. So,
got you.
And she'd been great for me when I'd moved up to the north. So, it's something I think you grow into. You have to listen to your staff. But you have to have a clear direction, and I think that came with time. When I first came into the role, I think I knew where it wanted to go, but I probably didn't have the confidence or really the experience to know where that should go and what that should look like. And I think that came in time, really. But I learned early that your people are your biggest asset. And it's really important that you through my career, it's about being clear with your management style, listening to people. Changing direction is not a weakness in my move sometimes. If it makes sense to change, you can't just say, this is my way or the highway, we're never doing it if it's taking you in the wrong direction.
Show some sort of fluidity with it.
You do have to show, but you have to know, you have to be very strong on what you believe in. And I believe in open management with staff, telling people you can't share everything with people, but I learned that fairly on, that if you want people to come on a journey with you, they have to feel listened to, but you also have to give clear strategic direction to people. I think people like that, having a clear direction and knowing where you are as a business, how you're growing, sales, good, bad, this has worked, this hasn't worked, what do we need to do? Because people, I think, if you involve people and you share this information, they feel part of the team and they've got great influence on where you go. So I think that's really important for people to understand, this is where we want to go, we all need to go there. And you have a huge part to play. So I think that came with time. At 25, I don't think, I had that. and it was a little bit daunting, I won't lie. But I grew into it.
Did you have anyone like almost like mentoring you or like holding your hand during that period? Because I know freight can sometimes be, shove someone in the role and see how they do. If they swim's great. If they,
You've worked in freight before, haven't you? That's a typical freight way sometimes. I did. There was somebody in London that had pushed for me to get the role. So they mentored me from a sales perspective, but also as a sounding board for management. Because it is tricky when you first take on that role. You feel that's the right decision, but it's good to bounce that off someone. Am I right in my thinking? Is this the way we should go? And I think at 25, you can be challenged by people and they want to push the boundaries a bit because you're younger. So you have to be strong in what you believe, or you could move in directions that you shouldn't be. So yes, I did have a mentor, and I very much believe in that. And even now, I think it's really important. I've had a great career in freight, logistics, etc. It's really important to give back. To show people, I didn't come from a hugely educated background, but I had belief in myself and had a lot of drive, always had a lot of drive. And recently it was really exciting. We went to a university in Nottingham, presented to a lot of students. It's quite nerve-wracking. You've got 30 or 40 people in the auditorium, and then we did a breakout after. hugely rewarding, great
Yeah.
questions, some really bright people in supply chain. And then it's been great because post that event, I've had people connect with me, asking me questions. Would I mind a little bit of mentoring?
Yeah.
Absolutely. This career in this industry has been fantastic for me. So,
And I guess I guess when when you're in this import role, did you just have to make it super clear that you wanted progression? You wanted, because there's a lot of people out there in that same position now, who may be wanting more, but like, what was your approach to saying, put my hat in the ring and?
The first time I realised I wanted to go into sales
Yeah.
is I was really quiet on my role on imports.
Yeah.
So I actually went on the back of the truck. So I would drive. We had clearances back then from Europe. Well, we've gone back in time again because we're doing them again now. But at the time, I used to have to drive a vehicle with all the customs clearances to Charlton in East London. And so I did that just to help out. So I learned how to drive the van. No GPS then. So I'm sure I took twice the time that I should have done to get there because I didn't know where I was going. But that was quite good because I used to deal directly with the customs officers. But as it was quieter, I remember mentioning to one of the directors, look, don't pay me any extra, but could I pay for a travel card myself, go into London, visit some of the art galleries and sell our packing and shipping services?
Oh, right.
For quiet, you're paying my salary. Could I add benefit elsewhere?
Yeah.
They didn't think that was the right thing to do because I had a sales team in situ.
Yeah.
But then I realised that, to me, I quite like a competitive environment. And the ability to grow something really caught my imagination.
Yeah.
So not long after that, I joined Camden in my first sales role.
Right. Oh, okay. Amazing. Yeah. And then from when you were branch manager, what was then the sort of next stage in your career? Where did you go from there?
So I'd been doing that for about 2 or 3 years. And then I played golf with a gentleman called Keith O'Brien.
Right.
So we were the last group out and said, oh, I'm Keith. Oh, it's a coincidence. My name's Keith. And we started playing golf, got on very well, lots of coincidences. Turned out his girlfriend at the time lived on the same road mine did.
What?
He used to live around the corner from where my brother lived in Scotland. So there was always strange coincidences. We did have to double check actually when he said his partner lived on this road. We were just checking it wasn't the same person on there. But we got on really well. I managed to win this golf bag at a BA golf event. So he said, do you fancy going for a beer after the golf event? I said, yeah, great.
Yeah.
So we dropped my new golf bag that I had and my golf clubs at home. And we went for a drink and we'd had some discussions at the time. He was branch manager for a company called Ultimex. Right. Which later became GPS YRC, but it was run by Mark White, who was a partner in SEKO later on. But so I joined as sales manager at Ultimex in Manchester. Oh, so right. Keith was branch manager, I was sales manager. Yeah. We had a really good partnership. So he was responsible for sales and I was, for the operations and I was managing the sales there.
Got you.
And it was really good. It was a new company. It was independently owned. Yeah. There was Mark, Brian, and another Mark there that were the directors. And I liked it. They were looking at technology. Yeah. Quite exciting. They were very young. So it felt like there was a journey to be had with Ultimex. And I really liked the directors there because they were young and ambitious.
And what was Mark White's involvement there?
So he was one of the founders of Ultimex.
Okay. Right.
I remember on my interview asking a question like, "You guys are young, you're successful. Do you think you'll get bought out, or are you planning to sell out?" And they went, "Oh no." Anyway, 6 months or 12 months later, US Freightways USF Worldwide bought Ultimex. So it was quite an exciting journey because we had opportunities on US Freightways was a very strong domestic trucker at the time. So they were dealing with some great brands that we were hoping to break into in the UK. So we were trying to use that as leverage to come into, the UK brands that they were dealing with in the US. Yeah. So there was a lot of investment that came in through that. And it opened my eyes on, the size of some of the contracts they had. And it was a great journey. We had, it was fun. Yeah. The management meetings were always very good, but it was around growth. There was a model that we really liked because it was get a team of people. If you're opening a new office, you need somebody strong to run the operational side of it. Yeah. And someone strong to run the sales. And it's like a partnership.
Got you.
Because when you start a new branch, there's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And you're talking earlier about mentoring. If you've got two of you together starting in that role,
Yeah.
you can feed off of each other, but you're there to support each other, because in the early days it's quite tough.
Yes.
You know, you've got your phone, your desk, and an office. You've got to bring business in quick.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed that, you know, and it was always growing and fast growth.
Do you think it would be harder now to start a branch than it was back?
It's a really good question in terms of, I still believe if you have the right relationships, if you're built of the right stuff, that you not that you just don't take no for an answer, you've got the drive, you've got the vision. I still think it's eminently possible to do that, and people are still doing that. People are still building those branches, but it's got to be around the cornerstone of understanding the values of the business and your personal values. So I definitely think it is. It's probably a little bit easier for us back then if you had some technology, because now most people have got some form of technology, and I'm sure we'll touch on that later. But, you know, back then, if you had something slightly different than just...
It was quite obvious.
Yeah, transactional freight. If you could offer something more than that, it was changing a discussion from price to value add. And that's certainly something that when we come to SEKO, that we had a very clear
What sort of
direction.
tech back then would you have been putting forward as, let's call it sexy, but like now it might not be, as probably quite basic or pretty...
To be fair, Mark had built a PO management system.
Oh, right, okay.
So at the time there was very...
Innovative.
It was innovative. There wasn't many doing it. There was Allport. I can't remember what Legentia were called before then, and Expeditors and C.H. Robinson. You know, they'd seen early doors that certainly once you go into retailers, merchandisers, there was a big black hole of information. If you can present information to them in their language and they can track not just a shipment, because if you're tracking a shipment, it's generally reactive, it's left. If you go into PO level, you can make decisions on your supply chain at a much earlier, so it's much more proactive on how you manage your supply chain. So having access to that technology for what was relatively a small company against the big players was a big win for us, and it changed the dynamics of a conversation with the client, which I really liked.
Yeah, interesting. Well, I take it from there, once they were bought, is that when you made the move to SEKO?
Not too many years later. I think it was 2 or 3. Hard to remember back that amount of time. But we were looking to maybe do something on our own. I had a hunger for some equity. You know, I really wanted to build something. I wanted to build something, and I wanted an end game of some equity. It changed my mindset from being an employee to good and bad. You know, you have to make decisions and you have to take things on the chin as an employee you wouldn't have to do. But it was a really important driver for me to have some equity.
Got you.
So we started, Keith was MD, and I was running the branch for Manchester at SEKO early doors.
Interesting. Yeah, nice. And what would you say your biggest highlight at SEKO would have been? What?
I don't know. I wouldn't say there's one. I loved at the beginning, it being very honest. Every client was crucial to us, and that feeling of starting from nothing. So every client, you were intimate with the client, you knew what they needed, and you were offering something different. I really loved that. I love building. You know, where we started from nothing, and we were winning some really large business for the size of and for the scale of our company. You know, we were doing sort of air freight for some very large multinational brands, and I'd won a few of those sort of down into Heathrow. But
are you able to mention who?
Yeah, well, it's sort of a bit of a journey. When we started out, Dave was with us, and he'd got us access to a potential account that was doing what we called above the wing on the aircraft. So we was kitting, so it was a bit of a fulfillment exercise. And they were supplying the airlines. So we'd started off in London at Combrook in a tiny little office, half hanging off neon sign. Looked like Del Boy Freight, to be fair. Ironically, it's where Mark had started his career with Ultimex. It was his first office. And we'd won this piece of business, and it was £2 or £3 million a year for us, and it was a game changer. So winning that, and there's another story.
Good margin as well.
It was good margin, but it was more the strategic direction it took us in. There was kitting, and it allowed us to move into a state-of-the-art brand new facility in Langley. So we were next to Allport at the time.
Yeah.
And it was a really big facility.
Right.
So we had TK Maxx and M&S. We were talking to them through a logistics provider to manage their air freight.
Oh, okay.
And actually, if they'd have come to the old facility, it just wouldn't have. Yeah, we wouldn't have got past the test really when they came to visit. But this was brand new. We were able to build the airline pallets in there. So that was a real seminal moment for us, that we were dealing with some really large UK brands, some very large air freights, garments on hangers. But that moving into that new facility, it was quite shiny, and it was a real statement for us then. So when we were bringing bigger brands in, they could see we were a legitimate company. The facility, we were picking and packing through that. We could build the airline pallets. So that was a real changer for us.
Yeah.
And you know what? It was good fun. Yeah, there was testing times, but it was good fun.
Yeah.
We were all very clear on what we wanted to be. You know, when I first spoke to Mark about setting up SEKO, it was very much technology led.
Yes.
And to me, that was really, really important. You know, I don't want to have conversations about $50 of freight rate or $25. Okay, that's fine. There's $25. The value to you is potentially on the technology for your teams.
Yeah.
Can they make proactive decisions on their business? Can we add value at origin? Can we pack your containers?
Yes.
Can we pre-pack for distribution at China? All of these things where you're cutting out real supply chain costs.
Yeah.
$50 a box, and if you've got 10,000 units, really, why are we having this conversation? If we can pre-pack your e-commerce, and we were very early into e-commerce at SEKO, really early into it. If we can pre-pack some of your e-commerce at origin, you can bypass the DC in the UK. Think about the timing that can go into the postal network, or the parcel network. The costing, because obviously it was much cheaper for people to pick and pack in China. Certainly at that time, it's a little bit different now. But so these were real value-added conversations. But you needed to really pitch at C-suite. Yeah. Not a shipping manager necessarily that was looking at a bottom line freight price. You needed someone that could see bigger picture. Quicker to serve your clients, better service. Less chance of things going wrong because you're not touching the freight all the time. And our technology was built with that, initially on PO management, and then our own warehouse management system, WMS.
And was a lot of this done over like bids and tenders, or was it meetings and handshakes?
What I really loved is and one of the drivers that was really important to us is if it comes to a winning client. If you've got a client that buys into what you do, and your vision of where we should be going, then you can work with that winning client, okay? Because again, you're not talking about price. So we'd never done fulfillment. We had a winning client. Could you do the pick and pack for us? Our first one was a company called Pink Soda. Right. And then got bought by Next in the end, but that enabled us to start going to pick and pack. So if we had a winning client, some of my clients were automotive, they had real gaps in their technology. We built the technology for it. We had to go and build it ourselves because we had our tech stack and our team to do it. But it was a winning client. They would, we'll go on that journey. We want something different than the sausage machine approach of some of the larger forwarders. So it always came down to a winning client,
And when you say winning client, is that a case of they're willing to just work with you and offer, I guess, some control over other areas of the supply chain just versus off the shelf type thing?
So you need to have C-suite buy-in or senior leadership buy-in. Okay, so by winning client is, they buy into our model. They like the fact we're nimble. They like the fact that we were owners and founders, so we could say yes. So, we're not having to wait for all this decision-making process that goes up and down the chain. If we agreed on something, we could go and do it. And I love that because, sometimes we went in directions that you couldn't always scale, and we had to bring back sometimes and say, look, can we build something that can be used for other clients? Unless it was a really huge opportunity, is can we use the intel from this project and allow it to serve other clients and other prospects and people in our pipeline. So as long as it was something that could be scalable or used for another client, let's go and do it. And it's good fun, you sort of going in there with some really good tech people, and SEKO still do, very much on that tech, but that was really good fun.
And was there ever, within those type of winning clients, was there ever a bit where you perhaps got it really wrong?
Yes.
And like, what did that look like? I feel like so far it's been a really good, clean, positive journey. But like sometimes good to understand where things may go wrong, and where,
Yeah, I think if anyone sat here and said they've never made a mistake, they've probably never won that much, because you have to make mistakes in your career, and,
Yeah.
and sometimes I guess probably not even just down to a product or something. It was a bit more that we maybe misjudged that they'd bought into it, or there might have been ulterior motives on their behalf sometimes, where they, yeah, great, we'll do all this, and then you get towards the end.
Yeah.
Actually, we don't want to pay for this, or we don't want to do this.
Yeah.
Thanks for helping us. That was really, we got some great intel, but actually we're going to go in a different direction.
Yeah.
So I would say it's probably more along that, where we maybe misjudge, or sometimes you just believe someone's honest and maybe something goes through. So you don't ever win all the time when you're not taking enough risks.
Yeah.
You have to learn from those mistakes, and we did sit down and evaluate. Did we misjudge the situation, or going back in time, would we have made the same decision with the information we had?
Yeah.
But it's important to look back on things, good and bad, really.
Yeah, no, for sure. Okay, and then bringing us to date.
Yep.
What have you got going on? What is it you're doing?
I've got lots going on. Everyone was like, I thought you'd be taking it easy, and it's just not in my nature. As my wife and children say to me, Dad, I thought the idea was to take it easy. So in 2023, December was my 20th anniversary at SEKO.
Yeah.
And I'd been thinking a while for things I'd really wanted to do. So spoke to guys and sort of had a couple of projects I was working on. Exited the business in 2023, December.
Yes.
Took 3 months out. Play a bit of golf, not a great time, January to March, but and just evaluate where I wanted to go, because it was a big step for me. Clearly not getting any younger, but I had a lot of drive, and I wasn't quite sure whether I wanted to take that drive. So took 3 months out, had some really interesting conversations. I was offered to maybe start another freight forwarding company, or sit on the board, or do some other non-exec work, which was quite interesting, but I fancied a change. I didn't want to go back into freight forwarding. Been a great part of my career, obviously. It's been very good to me.
Yes.
We exited SEKO through a couple of events, but I fancied a bit of a change. So a good friend of mine, we called each other work wife and husband, Rachel Williams, who was she was an ex-client of ours, actually, and she'd recently gone into consultancy.
Yeah.
So I was chatting to her, and she said, "Oh, it's great. You can dictate your own times, and you can take on interesting projects," and that sort of got me thinking, is consultancy the way I want to go? I guess over the years you forget a lot of what you've learned, but when you go back into a situation, that all comes flooding back, some of the experience you've done. So I started Evolution Supply Chain, which is a consultancy, in April 2024. Yeah. I decided, let's see where this goes. So started to win some projects. A bit nervous on my first few, because to your point earlier, you're ready for management. You're going in as, am I qualified for this? And I had some really good reactions from some of the clients I was working with. But yeah, I really enjoyed the consultancy, in that you could be coming in and making a difference to people. You could put a different angle on where they were going. Sometimes it's just affirming that they are doing the right things, and people want that. But sometimes you've had experience in your past where you can take people in a different direction. So I started Evolution as a consultancy on my own. I'd also always wanted for years, as well as doing a lot of commercial at SEKO, I sort of headed up the EMEA, European ocean product. So I'd done a lot of procurement, and I'd always wanted to bring transparency of ocean pricing direct to importers. I felt quite passionately about that. Okay. So 5-10 years, it's been mulling in the back of my head. But obviously we had SEKO, and my energy was there. But once we'd sold out, I'd been thinking about it. So I started to have a few more ideas about this, and I thought, right, let's do it. I've spoken to some carriers, because I've got relationships in Asia, Europe and the UK with senior people at shipping lines. If I was to start a new business, would you buy into it? Because it's, the shipping lines are our partners in this. It's crucial to what we do. So a couple of carriers said, yeah, we'd back you, because they knew me from my time at SEKO. And I came up with the name Cargo Collective. And thought, right, okay, I really like the idea of a cooperative and bringing transparency of price into the market. So I'd started to do some marketing on it. Jack Benjamin, who does my marketing, we'd come up with a name and some logos and some branding. So I'd started to market Cargo Collective as a cooperative buying for ocean importers.
Yes.
And then I had some various LinkedIn messages. One of them was from a gentleman called Stefan Schuler, who used to be our MD and CEO in Germany.
Yeah.
And he said, "Hey mate, fancy a catch up?" I was like, yeah. I thought he was going to talk about freight forwarding. I was going to say, "Look, thanks, it's been great, but I don't want to go back into freight forwarding."
Yeah.
He said, "Oh, so we had a general catch up. How's life been?" And then he said, "Tell me about Cargo Collective." And I said, "Look, I want to bring transparency of pricing and surety of moving volumes for clients." So we had this conversation, and he said, "Well, we do that. We have, 50, 60,000 TEUs plus in Germany with ShiftX. We're looking to expand.
Yeah.
And we've got nothing in the UK." So I came off the meeting thinking, right, this is great. I could start on my own and have 100% of Cargo Collective, and it's going to take me years to get to the scale they are. So I said, "Well, what are you doing next Tuesday?" He said, "Well, I'm in the office." "Why is that?" I said, "Can I come and see you?" I was like, "Okay." So I flew out to meet with Stefan and his partner, Tony, in Germany, in Hamburg, to understand the model. Mm-hmm. And it really aligned with my way of the business, really, and the industry.
And what was it like? How long had ShiftX been trading for?
So we're 10 years this year as ShiftX Germany. Yeah. A couple of sort of original BCOs. BCOs being beneficial cargo owners, so the owner of the cargo and the shipping.
Got you. Okay.
The first was Co-op in Switzerland, and the second was a company called Colroy in Belgium. So they had some quite large volumes, and really the backbone of the model is a lot of in Europe, a lot of companies procure jointly. So it might be bottles of water, cups, mugs, whatever it might be. So they might, rather than go on their own, they'd go in and procure lots of different products
to get a sort of cheaper rate.
Absolutely cheaper rate, and then surety of delivery, if you like. But the big unknown, the big risk in that is they didn't have anything on the freight.
Right.
So Bodo, who was one of the owners of ShiftX, they approached him. He had a freight company. "Could you do this for us?" And it was born out of that, really. Right. So we don't look at them. They're not clients. We're members. Yeah. I had a conversation with them quite early in the year, and then by April, I registered the company because that's where I wanted to go. Yeah. There's technology there as well attached to it on the PO. Yeah. But for me, it was, I got on really well with the guys. I trusted them. Mm-hmm. They had a great model, and it was very different. So we're a BCO almost in this as well. So we act on behalf of our members. Right. So we're on the side of our clients if we're negotiating with our ocean carrier partners. Yeah. It's about transparency. I don't want to be, we can all try and hide margin. Ours is it's transparent. Yeah. And it's not for everybody, and I quite like that. Yeah. I like to be a little bit different in the industry and have a different, unique selling point. Forwarding's been great to me, and I think, there's a huge market for forwarders. Mm-hmm. But if you're talking to, if you look at shifts and what we've had to deal with since really 2010, 2010 was the volcanic eruption. Yeah. Okay, so we couldn't air freight goods in from Asia. So, we were all trying to find ways. So we would air freight maybe into Spain or even, various different ways. But we found a way to get around it. So that was a big disruption at the time, 2010. Various ones, financial impacts, obviously. But then, obviously, we come to 2020 and we come to COVID. And that was a landscape changer, really, because people had a lot of contracts that were there where they thought they had contracts when really they didn't. Mm. So, we're living in a time now where there's just change, geopolitically, whatever's going on in the world. So, COVID, ocean pricing went from $1,500 or lower to $15,000, $20,000. Wow. And if you're on the C-suite, if you didn't pay that rate, you didn't have products. So if you don't have products, it's pretty difficult to run your business if you're relying on that product. So I think, for me, it's aligning with those businesses that buy into long-term thinking, strategic thinking. Yeah. And, with that feeling of being bitten, do you want to keep playing on the spot market or trusting you have a contract in your name, or do you want some surety on movement? Yeah. So I think, we align more with the C-suite because they're strategic and long-term thinking. They don't want to be riding. If I can say to you, and our model is
the roller coaster.
Exactly. Almost boring freight. If we can get it on this vessel that you want, at a price that's been arranged for 12 months. Yeah. What the next 12 months looks like.
I hear you. And we're kind of in that time now when you say about geopolitical, you know, and you talk about contracts and stuff, like we're kind of in that time now. Is there anything you think companies can do to try and protect themselves or to, you know, try and mitigate risks of, you know, some...
Yeah,
you know.
I think it's a very good question. And it's, if I was running a business, if I was reliant on stock, that's a question I would be asking. How do I de-risk my supply chain?
Yeah.
Okay, because I've said for a long time, earlier this year and late last year, I didn't believe that the Suez would open fully. There was a lot of talk and people were risking on, oh, the Suez will open and the pricing will come down. You know, if you objectively look, the world is not stable.
Yeah.
You know, the Middle East, I didn't believe. You know, you've got the Houthis that were targeting ships.
Yeah.
It just didn't look stable to me. And so it is. Obviously, we're now finding ourselves with all the events of the last 3 weeks. I was a bit too close for comfort being in Dubai when the war broke out, and that's a different story. But yeah, literally seeing it firsthand, you know, seeing drones go over. But that's been sat there waiting, bubbling away for a while. You know, we talk about geopolitics. Who would have thought that Far East trade 2-3 years ago would be affected by the situation that was happening in the Middle East?
Yeah.
Right. So that then closed off the Suez, going around the Cape. There was not enough vessels and containers physically to have that, because the dwell time was an extra 2 weeks, if you like, going round, and then you've got the same coming back. You need more ships, you need more containers. So one event here has triggered major events on Far East, you know, westbound trade and going back in. We've had the Trump tariffs. You know, one day they're on, one day they're off. Yeah. So you have to, sometimes you have to be a little bit longer term thinking. You can't, when the Trump tariffs were announced, you can't then just pivot straight to, right, we're going to manufacture here. And you know, you have to be very aware of it. You have to be close. You need to, in my view, you need to have a partner that you trust their judgment, that they're looking after you in terms of what's happening in the world. What contingency plans do we have in place to protect you as our client, as our member? And what can we put in place to manage that around? So at the moment, it's clear the Suez is not going to open. Okay. Freight spot prices are going like this again. Fuel, there's emergency surcharges emerging. The next quarter, the BAF will be going through. It's over $100 a barrel. So again, we're stuck with this geopolitical massive impact on supply chains.
And I'm hearing the surcharge of fuel and stuff. That's all. It's all about to get go skyrocket if it's not already. So okay, cool. Well, I guess into the technology side of things, because that's always as you've mentioned, it's a big pillar to any company, big value add. What would you say, you know, tech-wise, ShiftX have sort of brought to the table? What are they, you know, what are they doing sort of differently?
So one of the other drivers that, you know, I really bought into the model, that it's for the right companies, not for everybody, like I say, but it's for you know, people that like surety of annual contracting, of pricing, and also forecasting of their business and matching it. But the other side was the technology. Having, as I said, with SEKO, that was a huge part of what we did, the technology, improving visibility to importers and exporters. So I had some conversations very early on before I did the deal, is what does this roadmap look like on technology? And we partnered with a company called Logwood.
Okay.
And the great thing with Logwood is their software is built for the BCOs.
Right.
It's not freight forwarding software that tries to manage it from a client facing. It's built for the clients. So it's very much around, it can go from pure tracking as deep as the PO management. But it also has things like detention and demurrage modules. So our contracts, the great thing with ShiftX is we have additional free time on our contracts built in. So, you know, people have less risk of demurrage. So there's even a module in that you can make decisions, the warehouse can make decisions based on each shipping line in our contract with them to mitigate detention, mitigate demurrage. So that's a huge part. You know, we're talking to clients that have had £1 or £2 million a year demurrage bills. This is complete visibility. So our platform gives complete visibility of our contracts, from pricing on a, you know, a port to port, if you like, freight pricing on it. But then also on the detention and demurrage. So people are making, or the warehouse can be making a decision on, intake on if there's low stock,
Yeah.
but also to mitigate that because they can see when the demurrage will start.
Yeah, yeah.
Another really strong piece of the technology is, if you were to track, shipping lines tracking is notoriously poor. I'll say poor. So you could have 3 containers from three different shipping lines on the same vessel, and if you tracked their tracking, they could all give you a different ETA. Well, that vessel's arriving on whatever day it arrives, but you've got 3 different data sets on it.
Yeah.
Clearly, with the Cape, that added quite a lot of timing on it.
Yeah.
Ports like Rotterdam were becoming congested, and that really added quite a bit to the transit times because they couldn't turn the vessels around quick enough. So what Logwood has, it has some intelligence built into it. So it has real-time tracking based on the GPS location and the geolocation of it, but also on past performance.
Right.
So instead of just showing you this is what the shipping line is telling us the ETA is, it's building some intelligence. So, okay, this is here, but our estimated date of arrival might be 4 or 5 days later, taking into the fact that it might have some hold-ups in Rotterdam. This is the past 3 months performance data on it. Okay. So it's really giving that visibility of real time. Yeah. Not what we're told it is, but actually there's some real intelligence behind it to give our clients and our members much more surety on those ETAs. Yeah. And you can dive down into that to real deep PO management into, right, we need this to move, we want this consolidated. Yeah. So that was really important to me, and we're running that as our freight management software as well. Yeah,
so it sounds really intuitive. Yeah,
it's very intuitive. There's lots of talk about AI, but yeah, AI is great for some of this stuff because it builds in. We've got various fail-safe checkers in it to make sure that it's pulling data in from various sources to give the client as much as an accurate truth as possible. Yeah. It's got all our pricing in it, and it's all live data. And we're actually going into, we've got DataX, which is becoming our AI software for data analytics for clients.
Oh, okay.
I think the really great thing about AI is you can have as much data as you want. What's the context of that data, right? Do I just want to stare at thousands of data fields? What does that mean? Is my vessel going to be on time? Is it likely to be late because of X, Y, Z? Can you build that in there? What's my individual cost model? What's my landed cost model with duties, taxes? Yeah. How much demurrage? All of these things can be built in on a self-serve basis. So, Power BI is great, but without AI, I can build my own dashboards and we can help build them for the client, but they can interrogate the data themselves. Okay, if this vessel moves late by 3 days, how does that impact my supply chain? How does that look like onto my stock holding? Yeah. This is where I think it's really exciting with the advent of AI is that you can get context around data. Yeah. For the BCO.
And almost helps the customer run their own business in effect.
Absolutely self-serve, because also it's not just one size fits all for the client. If you're in merchandising, you've got different drivers than you would do if you're in the warehouse. Yes. If you're a CFO, CEO, you've all got different drivers. It's things like the supplier performance. Everyone, suppliers being the factories. Oh yeah, they're great. Well, how do you know they're great? You're not actually monitoring them because that you're not monitoring when they originally told you that X factory day. This gives you that data and that insight into actually some of the factories that you thought were always on time are actually a week late. Yeah. We can tell you financially what that impact has on your supply chain. Yeah. So it's actually putting facts into it and context. That's what I really like around it. And the system is built as, we learned this at SEKO, is that when we first built the system, every time there was a client, there was a modification. So it sits in the stack and right, they need this. And it came back to what I said earlier is you really want to be able to build something that you can reuse. Yeah. So with the Logwood system, the data fields are like this. Massive. So they're huge. Yeah. And then as we do the implementation for the client, we can bring that back into, right, you want to see this, you don't want to see that. Yeah. And there's, so far, touch wood, I'm not seeing anything that hasn't been captured, whether it be hazardous, whether it would be QC controls. We don't want to progress the purchase order and the shipment unless it's QC controlled. This is all in here, so it's a sort of tick box of what you want and what you don't want. Yeah. So it allows us to onboard new members into the to the cooperative much quicker. And I'm really excited for that technology. So we've got a lot of active discussions with people, but really that was not just having a great contracting model that we have, it's having this technology to be able to offer to clients and get really deep in their supply chain.
Mega. And With ShiftX, who would you say like the ideal customer is for you guys? Because I know you talked about winning customers for SEKO, but like within ShiftX, what would that now look like? As a winning client, is there a certain sector? Is there a certain size? Is there?
Comes back to what I said earlier. It has to be a winning client. They have to align with our ethos and how we approach business.
So you don't do it as a way of turnover sector?
We do, but do they buy into our model? You know, we have, we're very, very strong on that. Is if someone's very transactional, whoever's got the cheapest price they give the freight to, that's fine. That's your model. That's not ours.
Got you.
So that's the first piece for us. Okay, and we'll come to what that size of client looks like.
Yeah.
Are they aligned with our values? Because that's what we provide to our partners, the ocean carriers. The reason we've been very successful is the shipping lines really like our ability. We're over 95% on our long-term contract adherence in the last contract season. If we give shipping lines numbers, and there's a lot of work that goes into it, and my hat's off to the people in Germany, especially my colleague Tom, who's been managing contracts through this period. As you imagine, we were just about to get the ink dry, and then there's a war in the Middle East, and so he's done a great job, and so is Tony and Stefan in managing this through a very trying time. But the shipping lines know that if we give them some forecasts, it's incredibly accurate. And the great thing is we've got different commodities. There might be retail fashion, there might be some food, there might be some automotive parts. So the peaks might be a little different. So from us, it's never a flat line, but it's not as quite peaky as if it was just one commodity, if you can understand. So they know we don't have spot price, well, we do just for little overflows, but our model is around long term. Yeah. So if the rates drop, we're not dropping everything onto different contracts. They stay on it. But conversely, we're seeing rates they're going to be up at $4,000 probably again soon. Right. Our contracts negate all of that. It gives that flexibility. So I need to know that somebody's bought into the long-term vision. They're not just coming to us because it's potentially a cheaper price or whatever it is. Do you want long-term ocean contracts for 12 months? Can you forecast? Yeah. And no forecast is 100% accurate, but we give an annual forecast to the shipping lines, and then we break it down onto monthly. So it allows for all the clients' peaks and troughs. If you buy into our model and you buy into a long-term vision, great, we've got a conversation. In terms of volumes, I would say 300 to 500 TEUs up to about 5,000 TEUs, maybe up to 10,000 is our sweet spot. Yeah. So revenue, really 10 million up to about 500 million, I would say. So it's quite a breadth of that. For fast-growing brands, I've, from both the consultancy side and through ShiftX and my time at SEKO, there's a lot of, especially up here in the Northwest, there's some great retail brands that are going on really fast growth. But typically sales trumps everything. It's sales, 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 sales. That back end piece often gets forgotten about, right? So, you've got your P&L, there might be air freight in it, you might be overpaying on the freight just to get it on a ship. Yeah. At some point, you need your back end to be very robust to deal with your sales growth, because you can't continue to grow.
The wheels will fall off otherwise.
The wheels will fall off. Your P&L's all over. They're trying to get freight in. And actually, like I say, not as boring, but if you can add some stability into your supply chain, the CFO and the board know what their costs are for 12 months. And okay, if there's emergency surcharges, the carriers have to discuss it with us and we negotiate. We don't just necessarily take those on. Yeah. But we need to make sure the cargo moves. So we forecast to make sure they've got allocations. So all of our members have contracts in their own name. Right. So in a forwarding world, it's quite often it'll be an overarching contract. Yeah. And you're almost internally, you don't quite know what really is allocated to you with a shipping line. Got you. If you're ABC, then you have a contract name in ABC. It's filed in your name. The allocation is your name. Yeah. That's your space. That's your actual contract with the shipping line. Because we're transparent. Our pricing, we're not here to hide margins. Everything we do is around transparency for our members and visibility. Yes. Yeah. So in terms of turnover, that's where the turnover is. I think it's a cultural thing. I don't want to be, 2 months ago, I saw some freight rates that were flying around the market with some people sort of guessing that the Suez was going to open. Now, if you're happy to go on that, and for certain people, that's absolutely fine. And I'm not saying one way or the other, but I know that there were rates being offered that they didn't have. Right. Okay, so there's going to be some awkward conversations because you can't keep taking losses. Yeah. They're going to have to implement surcharges or have a discussion around increasing price. That's fine. That's, if you wanted to take a risk on that, that's absolutely fine for you. But I know that there's freight prices out there that aren't real.
Yeah.
You know, so we're not here to take a risk on our members.
Yeah.
We're here to give you, these are the costs. We've just finalised all of our contracts. We've got certain mechanisms in there. If we might be able to mitigate some of the surcharges that are going around that other people are taking on board, because we're strategic. This is a 12-month play, you know, so it's very different.
Yeah, I hear, and I think it's that thing of sometimes it's not always meant to blow your socks off, you know, but you probably can put your head on a pillow at night and not have to necessarily.
It's exactly that. If I'm a CEO or I'm a board level, what do I want in my life? I want surety.
Yeah.
I know it's very difficult at the moment. You just turn on the news and probably turn it off quickly because you don't want to what's coming next. But if you know you've locked in, so for the next 12 months, you've locked in your Forex, right? So, okay, we've locked in our Forex at one point, whatever it might be, right? So I'm not got exposure on the Forex. My manufacturing costs, I've got that in unless force majeure happens. I've got those locked in. Now I've got my freight charges locked in. So I know what the pricing is and okay, you know, if there's force majeure or something, but that's it for 12 months. And we've got allocations set for those 12 months based on our actual performance.
Yeah.
That de-risks everything. And to your point, I'd sleep easier knowing that I've got all those things locked in. But that's not for everyone. Some people need to react to the lowest spot pricing. Yeah. To me, that always was very risky. You know, I'd much rather talk about here's our costs, and that's how we manage it.
Do you see yourself walking away from a lot of business, i.e. because of their approach, you quite quickly find out they're more spot pricing, basically?
This first 12 months for me, I thought I knew what our target clients were. Yeah. I thought I had a clear, some of it was right, but I'm even more, and the guys in Germany were very clear on this, that you know, you will get to know what your target clients are. If I start to feel that the client hasn't bought into the long-term strategic vision, so yes, we do walk away, and I have walked away from clients because if at some point we're going to not fall out, but it's not going to be the right fit. If the rate suddenly dipped for 2 weeks and you start changing all your bookings, and then want to jump back on our contract 2 weeks later if there's a GRI or rate increase, that's not for us. And I don't want to be having those. I'm too old. I'm bored of those conversations. This is where the market is all the time. Yeah. We do have a tool called Zenetta, which gives us all the market pricing that our customers have access to. So you can see where the spot pricing, you can see where the long-term markets are on all your port pairs. And you can even see in Zenetta where if you had 500 Ts or let's call it 1,000 TEUs, you could see where your long-term pricing should be on 1,000 TEUs. Yeah. Because the beauty is you're part of a team. We've got over 60,000 TEUs and over 60 members. So that buys a lot of goodwill with the carriers. You know, we have robust contracts. It's not goodwill, it's robust contracts with the carriers based around all of our members. We have an annual conference where all the members get together. We have regular meetings online to share intel amongst our membership. So you're not just going into that, there's actually shared intel that comes across and challenges that are happening in the market. So it's very much a shared experience. We'll tell everybody what the market prices are because that's fine, right? And you can't hide from it. 20 years ago, nobody really knew what the long-term contract pricing was. Nobody knew what the spot pricing was.
Yeah, all a bit smoke and mirrors.
Smoke and mirrors, whereas now it's just, you know, there's indices all over the place. The trade press know the costs. Yeah. So let's have a chat about your supply chain. Where can I make improvements? Where can I give you surety on the movement of the freight? And where can I improve visibility for you on your supply chain? That's, you know, the one thing to note is that we aren't a customs clearance agent. And we don't manage the delivery on that. So we work with a company called Advanced, our partner, who manages that process through for us. They do the customs clearance. They've got an in-house bureau that does that. And then also the deliveries. So
that being Advanced Supply Chain?
Yes.
Is it? Yeah, got you. Yeah. We're on a call with them later today.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. You can mention I said hello.
Yeah, no, interesting. Okay, and then... and then with your go-to-market strategy, because I know you mentioned like, look, I'm too long in the tooth for just, you know, going, you know, being all transactional and stuff. Like, what do you think it, you know, what do you think it's sort? What do you think the best go-to-market strategy for winning, you know, like the slightly higher value contracts, you know, longer-term business? Like, what's the best sort of go-to-market sort of strategy?
Something that worked really well for us at SEKO was references, our networks. Personal networks and business networks. The best sales lead you could ever have is somebody saying, these guys did a great job.
Yeah.
I'm introducing you to, you know, the CEO, CFO of someone. Clearly, that's the best sales lead you can ever have. You know, I'm not looking to employ salespeople. I'm new to marketing. You know, I did it in my old role a bit, but I'm sort of working with HubSpot, trying to get our outbound messaging. I think the interesting thing for me, I've learned over the last 12 months in terms of marketing, it needs to be multi-channeled, it needs to be multifaceted. You know, the first time someone sees your name, fine. But what I have found is even though people weren't always directly contacting us, when I had a conversation, they said, I've seen you on LinkedIn. So I'm trying to build other channels out, like things like this are invaluable for us. Trying to get some thought leadership, you know, with roundtable events that we're doing. So I've got some of those lined up where it's under Chatham House rules, where it's more about getting like-minded people together. Okay, what's the challenges in the industry? What are you facing? Are you finding issues and challenges from the Indian sub, or is it China? Is it US? Is it Turkey? You know, it's having that thought leadership. So it's very multifaceted. Clearly, the more I can do through recommendation, you know, some of our partners we work with, you know, it's really important that you know, there's a company called Barbour & Brook that we've done some work with because they do customs consultancy.
Got you.
Really good on making sure that clients can understand where their exposure is. So they've got high trust relationships, but I've introduced those to some people I know because I know they do a really good job. And when we talk about things like geopolitics, you know, tariffs, really, who was talking about tariffs 2 or 3 years ago, right? Nobody was talking about tariffs. Nobody was looking at customs as, you know, a huge risk area, but it can also actually make your business accelerate if you get the customs piece right and you understand it intimately. So we're also working, you know, I've got some webinars with them talking around that customs, and it's also that surety piece. Can you go to bed at night as a CFO and know that you're customs compliant? If the answer is no, sometimes people don't know it's wrong. The thing is with these things, you don't know it's wrong until you maybe get a knock on the door and a visit from HMRC. That's your exposure, and people don't realise you can go to prison. And it might not be deliberate, it might just be unknowingly, or there's a huge bill where you've got £3 million sat there that customs want to reclaim because you haven't, you're not compliant. Not through anything deliberate, just that you weren't aware of it.
Just caught up in it.
So, you know, and also some other partners in the AI space, like a company called Lumina that does AI ERP for clients. Again, very, very good, very nimble. But you're having more supply chain led, and through evolution now, I've built a bit of a collective through that. Just the one thing I noticed when I first went into the consultancy is, well, one, I can't scale myself. So, you know, there's only so many hours in a day, as my children and wife say to me, Dad, you can't do everything. So, but it also adds a support network to people. So when you first go into consultancy, it's a bit, oh my God, you know, what am I doing? I've had a team of people working with me. So there's a support network. So don't worry, after 3 months, you'll get your contracts. This is where you need to go. This is how you need to market yourself. So it's really just pooling really good, solid partners around us and building some surety, you know, around that. But there's no one way to go there. I'd much rather deal through a recommendation.
And well, I know you mentioned you met Keith on the, you know, almost on the golf course. Has there been any like funny coincidental, let's say, new business wins, or people that, you know, or just a unorthodox way of having gone around meeting someone or winning business? Now
or in my career?
Just throughout your career,
I think I mean, sometimes I've been sat at a dinner coincidentally with a client that I'd really wanted to go into, and you know, I'd been trying to break down the door for them and just happened to be sat next to them at a dinner. And then that was the door opener for us. You know, I couldn't have paid money to be able to sat next to that individual. Clearly, I think as you build out your network, you know, the 3 degrees, what's the degrees of separation? I can't remember. Is it 3? I can't remember what it is now. They say
I know
connected.
I know the book.
You know, with LinkedIn, you suddenly realise that you may have a connection with somebody that knows that person. Not really coincidental, it's a bit more strategic that you're looking at it, but sometimes you just happen to be, I've played golf and found out somebody was working for a company, I've won business through that. I just think you know, sometimes you do have to network out there. You don't know where it's coming from. You don't know who knows who. So, you know, I think putting yourself out there, trying to just be true to yourself and your business in terms of your values. People do talk. So sometimes you don't always directly know where leads come from, but you know, things appear in my inbox and someone's just very kindly happened to do an introduction. Someone, you know, I've had a struggle. I bumped into somebody and they said, you should speak to Keith. So yeah, the Keith one was very strange. When we were having this conversation on the first night, it was this is
a bit
bizarre.
of a stars aligned moment.
It was a stars aligned moment. And it, you know, it served me very well, and it's sort of my career's gone that way. But it's networking, right? You know, that opportunity came through networking. When the ShiftX opportunity came out, because I was starting to, through my social channels and LinkedIn, talk about Cargo Collective, and this has led me to ShiftX.
Yes.
But I believed in the model. That was where I believed the industry is going around. You can try and hide the pricing, but they're visible. You know, we're not here to make up pricing we don't. These are our costs, and if they work for you, that's great. Everything's under an NDA, so they can't we can't disclose any financials until we're under NDA. But if that works for you, great. If it doesn't, that's okay as well.
And hopefully everyone wins. You know,
and that's the thing with it. You know, we're not here to give you a rate that's so ridiculous. We're here to move your cargo. And like I said, the guys in Germany and in China, we've done a great job in doing negotiations. I was out in Asia with them, seeing firsthand the conversations at the senior team at the shipping lines. We're not here to take risks on your supply chain.
Yes.
And if that works for you, that's great. But a lot of people got stung in COVID because what they thought was a rock solid contract. We had over 90% adherence on all our contracts through COVID. At rates we'd originally, you know, with a little bit of an additional add-on, and people saying you could have made a fortune. That's not a model. You know, this is a short term in time. That's not our model. Our model is that we look after our members.
Well, I guess having had a very, you know, a very colourful career, going back to, let's say, 25-year-old Keith, what advice would you give him, knowing what you know now?
It's put me on the spot, isn't it? I would say it's, you know, believe whatever you believe in, be true to yourself in that, and align with the business. You know, sometimes it's not the company, it's the people you work for. Okay, it comes back to people for me. Is you need to align. Yeah, it might be a great company with great technology. You need to align with people that culturally align with you. And I say the same with clients as well, actually. If you can't culturally align with the people you work with or your clients, at some point it's going to fall out, right?
Yes.
You know, if you've got different visions on where it goes. So, you know, roll with the punches, be nimble. I mean, if anything's taught me over the last, certainly 5 years since COVID, you have to react, but forwarders are like water almost, you know? If you've got a leak somewhere, it always finds a way out. And in forwarding and logistics, we always find a way. We don't know what it looks like. We know there's going to be more challenges coming down, but, you know, just be very open-minded, build great relationships and great partnerships. When I was at the university, I said, your network, you will never understand the value and the power of your network until you're older. But those opportunities that can come for it, not in a way of what's in it for me all the time, just, I love talking to people. There's some great people I've met on my journeys across the world, you know, really interesting, friends for life on it. You know, understand people, you know, different cultures. What does the culture look like, you know, and understand, you know, the one thing through traveling is that you get to understand different points of view. Take those on board, you know, be open-minded, but your network is extremely powerful. So just always build that up. And, you know, sometimes it's good to say no as well. Whether, you know, at 25, is that the right career opportunity for me? Is it the right company for me? And sometimes it might be a short-term 2-year thing, you know, and that was good for you at that time, but you've grown out of it. But believe in yourself and trust in it, and surround yourself with people that are like you, maybe challenge you on things like that. But, you know, just believe in yourself. And at 25, I suppose I was lucky enough, and I took a jump to manage people. I would do that again. Some of the decisions I made in my career, would I make different ones? Maybe, maybe not. You know, they taught me things, you know, some bad decisions. I've always liked in my career people that are willing to make a decision, you know, because I always say, if you stood in the middle of the road and the car's driving at you, you've got to go left or right. If you just stand there watching it, it's going to hit you. And sometimes you make a decision with the details that you had
Yes.
It was the right decision to be made at the time.
Yeah.
But I'd rather be dealing about a decision that went bad than someone who just waited for something to happen and didn't make any decision. If someone keeps making bad decisions, we need to have a chat. But I have got utmost respect, and sometimes what looks like a bad decision, with the information you had, you made the right decision at the time. And sometimes things go bad for a reason, but trust your gut feel. And I'm sure I'm not sure if you asked that question many times, but your gut feel, if you always go with your gut feel, my worst decisions have always been when I didn't trust my gut.
Went against it.
I went against my gut feel. And as I've got older, I've right, okay, that's my gut feel. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Well, Keith, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, no, really enjoyed it. That's flown by.
Thanks for coming on.